Is 2024 turning into layoff speedrun any percent? We're going to find out in this episode of Gaming Insight. Let's go. Hello and welcome to Gaming Insight. I'm Steve Saylor. This is your weekly show about all the biggest news of the week. And we're going to talk about 30-ish minutes with a guest. And my guest today is the founder, the host of Gamertag Radio, and the founder of, was it Danny and Rihanna marketing? I forget.
Yeah, it's called DNR Media Consulting. Yeah, so
we have that
DNR. So we have that, and also our new podcast, the Danny and Rihanna Show.
I was about to mention that. It's a great show.
Yeah.
Make sure you go listen to Danny and Rihanna Show. It's a great podcast. Just started up pretty much around the same time as this one did. So, hey, Danny, how's it going?
Now everything is good. Just been focused on our new consulting gig, which I've been doing that now for like the past couple of years. But this was more of like, let's do this together, because she's also been doing it on the side, and we looked at each other like, man, might as well just do it together and see what happens, And we know a lot of people, so it's been great. It's been great, and
that's awesome.
The feedback has been amazing ever since we made the announcement. Right, I think it was like the week of DICE. That's when we announced everything.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Oh, very cool. How was DICE? I heard it had some mixed feelings over there as people were coming out of it.
I didn't really get that vibe. I don't know what that. The vibe that I got over there was more. We had a lot of conversation about things that changes and everything that's been going on about layoffs and stuff like that. But I think it's been more positive, like people looking out for each other and like to see what's next for the industry. Great conversation more about that, and also things that was happening about Xbox. Some of the games were multi-platform. We had those conversations a lot, and it seemed it was more positive more than anything. So, and for us, like, I know when I go to these events, I'd love to see other people of color, Latinos and Black, to see what we've been doing in the industry. And a lot of us were there just networking and planning to see what else we could do in the future for all of us, for the industry overall.
For sure. I love that. I wish I was there. I had definitely a lot of FOMO of missing out on seeing y'all over there. But, someday, hopefully maybe next year's, fingers crossed. But, so, Danny, I wanted to bring you on to talk about sort of this the big news of the week. It seems that pretty much every day this week there was an announcement of a company doing layoffs. And I think we're kind of within January and February. Obviously, we're kind of hitting about 8,000 people roughly being laid off just this year alone. And we're kind of already way past, like almost at the same amount as layoffs as we had last year. And I think both you and I have, we've been through layoffs before in the past, and we can definitely understand sort of the aspects of that. And with the news of the big news, basically EA, Sony laying off quite a few of their workforce. I kind of wanted to sort of discuss that, and it seems very much like we're kind of in a very a stretching period for the gaming industry. It's not. I don't want to call it a crash or a bubble, but to a certain degree, I think maybe a bubble in regards to. Just because the pandemic was kind of a very unknown element for a lot of us in the gaming industry, kind of threw a lot of people in for a loop, and definitely in areas that we didn't think was going to be possible. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that, and with everything that's been going on.
Yeah, it's the past couple of years. I think it started actually the year that I got laid off at G4. I think that was more of like the media side that we got to see a lot of layoffs. That was back in 2022, like around there. Last year was more of like the studios and the industry, just a lot of layoffs from that, and now we've seen that still to this day in 2024. Which first thing first, I feel bad for everybody that's going through this, and for me, I've been laid off multiple times, and especially when I started working in the TV industry. At first, I remember I was blaming on myself, like, man, my job, did I messed up? Wasn't doing my job correctly or what? Yeah. But then once you start learning, man, it's more about the business, man, behind the scenes, budgeting and all that stuff. So first thing first, I don't want the devs or anybody from like marketing side or PR that have been laid off. Like, don't blame yourselves about, going through this stuff, man. Also, I think the higher ups, a lot of them been making really bad decisions, especially let's say a company like I'm trying to remember another company here, but anyways, a lot of the company is trying to like experimenting with live services, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. The feedback, for example, for this game from Rocksteady, Suicide Squad, people have
Yeah.
been having like, some of them people have been having fun with it, and a lot of them are like, this is not my thing. Not everything has to have live services, but then when the game comes out and you could tell that they put a lot of money in marketing, it's a flop. The sales numbers is not that good. But then what? Then that's going to affect everybody from the team that worked on this game for years. So that's the part where I think a lot of the higher ups are doing this like projections, like way too much. Bungie, I think, did that too. When they went way too above like the projection, thinking that it was going to be big for the company, but then you see the numbers of like now with Destiny and whatever else is going on behind the scenes has been pretty low. So I think right now this year and even last year, I think a lot of the companies overall are just trying to figure out what's next. What is it that thinks that's going to work for like the business side and everything. And that's one of the conversations we were having a lot at DICE, is what is it that we're supposed to do? Like, especially now, a lot of our friends, a lot of them are now competing against each other to get a job within the industry, so it's been kind of rough, man. Really, really rough, man. So, but whatever we could do, as creators or people that we connected with in the industry, if there's a way for us to spread the word and help others to find new opportunities, that I think that would be good too, man. So
I think so too, and yeah, I definitely want to reiterate kind of what you said earlier about, especially about like what it feels like, kind of like being laid off. Like I was on the other side of the broadcasting industry with radio, and then I got laid off through that. And yeah, you start to kind of think, it's like, okay, is it something that I did, or is it something I did wrong? And I definitely want to reiterate that. For those listening and watching, it is definitely not your fault. It just you fell under a line in a spreadsheet somewhere, and it sucks because you're extremely talented at what you do, and you put your heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears into everything, and just sometimes it just doesn't happen. And I don't want to say kind of like hey, it is what it is, but unfortunately, it just in business sense, that can be the case. But in regards to the people, it just really sucks essentially that it's kind of been sort of the go-to response, the go-to solution for companies is to lay off. And yeah, it's extremely difficult, especially when you have friends who are getting those dream jobs and working in the industry and making games, making the things that they love. And it just, within a year, they move their entire families, or, move into different states or different countries. And then less than a year later, it's like, hey, you know what? You gotta find a new job in 60 days, or you're out of the country, or you got to find something. Otherwise, your severance or disability or like your benefits are going to get pulled up. So I kind of wanted to, before, like, I know this is very kind of like doom and gloom sort of topic, but I kind of want to talk about sort of the future of this industry as we're kind of going through these, I don't say growing pains, but it's just through this specific situation of companies, making bets, not working out, and laying off people. Like, where do you see us as an industry move forward? Because it seems like we're kind of in a bit of a seismic shift in the industry, not only just obviously with the news of multi-platform, but also companies are going independent, or publishers, whatever. Where do you see the future after this kind of sort of seismic shift is kind of ending?
Yeah, I can see a lot of the devs that have been working on AAA titles and been working on major companies. Most of them are probably going to do their own thing. Maybe build like their own studio or work for like an independent studio, because I think there's a lot more freedom there than when you work on a big budget game. I think in the future we're going to see less AAA games because it's getting way too expensive for companies. And I think that's the future. And also, like, a company, I know you mentioned about multi-platform. I think the things that the Xbox is trying to do now, having these games multi-platform, is something that's going to be very new within the company. I think they need to experiment, because I think we can't, as an industry I'm talking about, we can't be doing the same exact thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Because is it working, or is the numbers? Are we getting new consumers buying games or buying consoles because we're keeping the same thing, the same strategy, the same marketing, same of everything since like the 90s and 80s? I think it's time for a change, and I think we got to do things that is going to help the industry overall. And I think this could be one of them. I'm not saying that it's going to be perfect for the company like Xbox, but something like, for example, PlayStation. Now they're releasing games now on PC, like Helldivers has been a huge success for that game in the studio. And also recently they announced we might see now PC support for the new PlayStation VR 2, right? So things like that, I think it's going to be good. Maybe, I mean, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but maybe we might see more PlayStation games on other consoles too. I think that will be something cool and great for everyone, because at the end of the day, the devs, when they work on the game, they want to get as many people as possible playing the games.
Sure.
That's the goal. It's not about let's keep it exclusive and that's it. No, like, I had this conversation multiple times, not only on the show, but on other shows. Ranch and Clank, for example, Insomniac, which I know they had layoffs too recently. I love that game. That's like my favorite PlayStation 5 game. That one and Returnal.
Rift Apart was just so damn good. I loved every second of that.
But both of those games, even though it's great, amazing reviews, the numbers are low when it comes to sales compared to like Spider-Man and God of War. Why is that? I know a lot of people, especially the gamers, are going to be like, man, the exclusives and this and this and that. But why are you not supporting a game like that?
When it is an exclusive.
When it is an exclusive.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So what PlayStation is supposed to do? Keep it the same, release it. Well, now they have it on PC, but what if they want to have this now on other consoles? It's going to get more income for the studio and also for the company, So like things like that is what I see in the future, is less exclusives, maybe experiment with some of the older games that have a multi-platform, and people just maybe want to go independent. Like for me, I got laid off multiple times when I used to work on my previous job at Discovery Channel before I started doing my own thing. And I decided to do my own independent business. Like I've been doing it now for like the past couple of years. I'm not saying that it's easy, but we need to.
I can attest to that. It ain't easy.
it's not easy at all. But I think now I have more freedom. I work with a lot of companies behind the scenes, and also I'm still doing my thing with not only speaking engagement, but also with the podcast. Like I think that's the future of people just probably want to do their own thing, man. Have everything independent. So
yeah, and you kind of mentioned something, like especially with regards to like people going independent or creating their own game studios or whichever. And then I think like even with the news, literally as of today, Embracer or like there's two studios, Gearbox and Toys for Bob, that are potentially going independent, and Tears for Bob actually already announcing that they're going indie, and kind of moving away from the publishing side of things. But it kind of ties into even like. With regards to like a AAA too, and I kind of want to get your opinion on this too, because we're seeing, I think a lot of people have been speculating whether or not AAA is sustainable, and I even said, I think our mutual friend Mike Futter said like it's. Some people have been saying it's, or basically they're saying it's too big to succeed at this point. And when we're seeing like so far the biggest, other than the layoffs, the biggest news story of 2024 has been two huge games that. Have gotten huge success from being multi-platform, with Power World being on Game Pass and on Steam, and then Helldivers being on PlayStation 5 and on Steam as well. We're seeing them pulling essentially what would have been a couple years ago AAA sales numbers, and they're studios that are very small, like less than 100 people small, and we're seeing that kind of success. So, do you think that basically the era of AAA would be over? Or would you see it as sort of like the era of AAA basically shifting our perspective on what AAA means?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see more of the shift of the changes, where we were going to see less AAA games, I think, in the future, because it's so expensive, it's complicated. Because look, game dev is hard. It's not easy at all. Every person I talk to about game dev, they're like, bro, it's not easy. Not only that, now after the game is done, Now the sales part is really, really tough. Like, for example, Alan Wake 2. Love that game. That's like my favorite game of last year.
Same.
And maybe for this generation so far, but I'm happy that Remedy sold already 1.3 million copies, right? I don't know how much money was when it comes to like budget on making that game, but I'm glad that at least they have over 1 million. Just to reach 1 million is hard. To reach 1 million is really, really hard. So I think we're going to see less exclusives, less AAA games, and more like games like AA, especially indie games, because it's cheaper, easy to publish and promote and everything like that. We're probably going to see more of that, and less of like the big games like Spider-Man, Halo, and stuff like that. I know Phil even brought that up. Phil Spencer at Xbox brought that up during the business update. Is in the future we're probably going to see less of that, of less like exclusives, and I think that makes a lot of sense, because imagine putting so much money on the game and again the game doesn't sell. I think the first time we had this conversation back in the days, I think a couple of years ago, was remember when Tomb Raider came out during the last generation. The numbers was great, and Square Enix still said it was a failure because they put so much money on that game. It still didn't even reach the goal. Like, it was still a flop according to them, So, but us as consumers, like, man, the game is amazing, great reviews. It had millions. Maybe they didn't have the numbers exactly when it came out, and then through time, it went above. Like, the numbers went a lot, but at that time, maybe the game was selling it for like maybe like cheaper now than compared to having it for like $60 when it came out. You get what I'm saying? So that's the part that I'm like, kind of like, man, even a game like that still flop. Like, it's a lot, man.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, we've been talking about exclusives quite a bit on this show, and my thinking is that at this point it just makes no like financial sense to basically to lock you down to one platform, because if you fail like sales wise, that's it. Like, you don't have, like, unless you have a deal where you can be able to go to a Steam or to an Xbox, or even, if your game's portable enough to go on the Switch or mobile, you're kind of stuck. Like, you can't get out of it. And that was like the way it had been for a while. And usually, some games can be able to make their budget back, and it's, if they're able to cut back here and there, but we're starting to kind of see that that's not sustainable at all anymore. Even just from a third party, not even talking about just the exclusives within these individual, like, the big three. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting time of where these kind of like games end up. Like, do you see a future where we're going to see maybe like The Last of Us on Xbox, or, Halo on PlayStation? Like, are we going to go into that, or are we going to start to see like, more other smaller games going to basically become those multi-platforms, and then we still the big ones that are exclusive to the big three?
Man, I hope Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation bring everything to everywhere, so we can stop this console war nonsense. Man.
I would love that so damn much,
right? Because what else are you guys are going to talk about once you have all these games out there? You know what I'm saying? So I hope that happens one day. But it's like, it's even like, I'm going to give you a perfect example that's been happening now in the TV industry, right? So the streaming services, they're going through the same thing, like, they're having issues with subscriptions. Not that many people some people join and leave and come back and so on, right? A lot of them don't stay for a very, very long time. So, or they have a new platform and the numbers is not that great. So, for example, HBO Max, right? They have a lot of great content in there, but the numbers is not that great. But let's release a couple of our exclusive shows. Let's release it on, let's say, Prime Video or something like that. Let's give them the old content, maybe the first 2 seasons of Sopranos or something like that, right? So it's out over there on Amazon Prime. I'm an Amazon Prime subscriber. I see it. I'm like, man, I really like this series. Where can I get the rest? Oh, I have to subscribe to Max in order for me to continue watching the series. Think of it like that. Xbox and other companies are going to probably do the same exact thing, where release these old games on all the platforms, and maybe this will convince you to join to their ecosystem. And I think that's the part where a lot of people are not really seeing that picture of like, they're still thinking of, no, it's supposed to be exclusive only and it's only on Xbox and that's it. Thinking that is all great and dandy, but do you really want Xbox to be third place forever? Do you want the company to get more subscribers, more console owners? Now people are buying more games. You have to have companies like Xbox and other publishers and studios to experiment which makes sense, which games make sense to release in multi-platform or not. That's the part where I support it, as long as there's communications between the companies and the consumers, like, hey, everything's okay, we're still releasing exclusives. You get what I'm saying? I think that's the part that I would like to see more in the future too.
I think I like that idea. It's something I hadn't even thought of before or even heard of. It's like the idea of, older games, just, it's okay. Like, hey, what else are you going to do? You're not really going to get a huge influx of sales on your own platform. Yeah, put it out on another platform. I think it's kind of why I like the idea of, Sea of Thieves going to PS5 and Hi-Fi Rush going to PS5 too, because it's like, yeah, they're great games, and they're great games on the Xbox, and Xbox players played them, but being able to play them on like another platform, are able to jump in and play and join in the communities as well. I think that's a great idea, and I think I would love to be able to kind of see like, definitely older games, but then the newer exclusives, sure, put it out on on like a Game Pass or Nintendo Switch Online if they expand that into its own sort of subscription service beyond just Nintendo games. So I love that idea, and I think you're right. I think you'll definitely go closer to ending this console war that we've been having since the 90s, and it's like we grew up through that. We know what it's like. We know it's not good anymore.
I'll mention this too, Steve. When I was at DICE, we had a lot of conversation about this, about like the industry is changing. People were asking me, Danny, what are your thoughts about Xbox maybe going multi-platform? This is before the business update came out, and we were just talking, and I think everybody agreed that there needs to be some type of change that is going to help an industry overall, where not only we'll see more money within the companies that are getting, right, but now we're going to see more people getting hired, more projects, now there'll be more opportunities for experimenting, like, hey, let's make this game and this and this and that, instead of like, let's do the traditional sequels and all that stuff. You get what I'm saying? So that's why I support this. I know a lot of people are probably not going to agree with the things that I say, because they just don't like change. They like the usual
status quo.
The typical stuff that's been happening since a long time ago. But also during my conversations, a lot of the folks that used to work so companies back in the days, they mentioned like, look, it's also I was part of the problem promoting this as a marketing thing, as like console war stuff back then, to convince people, because that was great for us, to people promoting our brand and so on. And they feel like, man, I think nowadays it's gotten to the point where it's just too much and it's not good for industry overall, so I wish people sit back and just think about this, and see this as like a good thing, especially for us consumers, because when there's competition, there's more opportunities for us. There's more. It's like with you and others been talking a lot about having accessibility in games, right? And once you see a company doing that, you're going to see other companies are doing the same exact thing. And what's going to happen? It's going to be great for everyone. But if we all stay quiet, not do anything, and have like the same exact thing, how our industry is going to grow if we don't make these moves? You get what I'm saying? So it's good to experiment. And look, when it first started, people adding accessibility in games, I bet it wasn't 100%, but at least they tried. And having people like you and others in the community, you guys give them the great feedback, so companies could not make the same mistakes, but make it better.
Yes, exactly. As I think my dad told me once, and I don't think he made up this quote, but it made sense, is that change is never easy, but necessary for progress. And I think that's more akin to today than before. So, but you know what? Hey, Danny, thank you so very much for joining me on this episode today. If people want to be able to find you, where can people find you, and also Rihanna's work on the internet, as it were?
Yeah, so you can find me at Gamertag Radio. Just search for Gamertag Radio. We're everywhere. Podcast app, everywhere. So right now we have over 1,300 episodes, and we just turned 19 years old a couple of days ago, man. So our next year is going to be our 20th anniversary. So I'm very excited about that.
That's awesome.
Now for like the Danny and Rihanna show, just look up Danny and Rihanna, same thing, and you will see our content. Right now we have like a couple episodes, I think 4 episodes right now, but it's a great conversation about like being new parents. We talked about gaming, and right now recently we talked about like physical versus digital media.
That's a great episode. Make sure everyone check that out.
That was a pretty great conversation because it's more like a laid back. It's not like a news conversation. It's more of like just conversations that I think the average person always talks about. So and also check us out on DannyandRihanna.com. There we have our consulting company there too.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, thank you, Danny. Have a great one. And hope to bring you back on the show sometime.
Let's do it.
All right. Take care.